Hello and welcome to this Hessian Scrum session. Joining me today is none other than the legendary drummer of probably my favorite band of all time and one of the greatest death metal bands ever, Mike Smith from Suffocation. Hello,
Oh,
Mike.
hey, man. You're
Hey,
too kind, Nicholas, but thank you. Thank you so much for
you
the
know it's
appreciation and years of dedication to Suffocation. I appreciate it.
it's the truth. I've been a fan since a very young age, and I think there are a lot of questions I have that I'm hoping that you can hopefully answer for me. But let's start with something that you've been doing recently, which is really cool. I've been following your podcast,
Hmm.
and you don't sidestep around the difficult topics. I think that you've shown a lot to people that most bands wouldn't be comfortable sharing. With
Right.
people. Why is that?
It all depends on the question I get, man. First of all, I don't, the world is so ridiculous now and just backwards and upside down. And I'm just the opposite of that. You know what I mean? Suffocation was a real history thing for me. That wasn't a game for me. The business aspect wasn't a game. Me as a person, being as a one percenter in death metal, as a black metal musician, I always made a point, to keep myself on the upper tier when I'm dealing with people, talking to people, how I come across, and I always had a message. If anyone asks me a question, there's a definite answer that I want to come across with that. I'm not, and that's just the way I've always held myself. So the podcast is the same way. I went into it with no special intent, none at all. I was actually asked to do it by my partner who does it with me, and he had did the last interview actually with me, and from that interview he came up and was like, "Yo, just the way you come across and speak, and you're so candid about everything, you really should, do a podcast to just let people know that you're alive and that you're here to help them in any kind of way possible." So it's really more like a diary. We never know what it's going to be as it happens. We just let the mic run, and whatever question comes out, we see, if we're intelligent enough to answer it properly to keep the people interested. So, that's how I'm going to go through this interview. It's just another thing, when I think I'm backing out of the industry and I'm going to just fade off into the sunset, somebody drags me back in, you know what I mean? And I appreciate that, I appreciate being held at some kind of worth. I try to, be a positive person throughout the whole thing and teach anybody who wants to listen. And these little outlets right now seem to be the way through natural progression. Like I said, it was nothing planned. It's all just a natural step in how I'm going to live this out. So.
One thing people don't realize is that you wrote a lot of lyrics, for Suffocation, then later for Grimm Real. And that kind of you talk in a similar way to some of the lyrics. It's candid, but it's well writ, well said. Now, one thing I want to know is because drummers don't tend to write lyrics or release rap albums on the side. Where did your kind of lyrical inspiration come from?
Well, I've always been a lyricist. I've always written lyrics for Suffocation from the demo days. But I'm also a student of hip hop as well. I was born in the Bronx, during the time when hip hop was just starting, and the experience I got from that, through my cousins who still lived in the Bronx and my family, was just a thing. It's just a thing. I've always been into every form of music. Thankfully, through my father, my house has always been rocking and humming with all forms, from country throughout. And it's not even so much a hip hop thing as much as it is just my delivery and how I write. If I'm going to write lyrics, even when I was writing lyrics for Suffocation, they all rhymed. They all had a concept and they rhymed. I wrote it in that form. I'm not a growler. You'll never hear me growl any of my lyrics. So naturally, if I'm writing lyrics and they rhyme, then guess what? That's considered rap, right?
Yeah.
Now, Grimm Real is just an embodiment of all of that. So a lot of people don't know, first off, that I didn't just write lyrics for Suffocation. I wrote entire songs for Suffocation. Guitar playing it, bass, lyrics, all of it. So with that said, I just do that all around. And with Grimm Real is more of like a diary for me. Of course, it's going to come out in rap form because, like I said, I want people to understand what I'm saying. So naturally, I'm not going to choose to growl it. That's the default. That's the default with that. But Grimm Real is something on there's no structure to it. Because I come from the death metal aspect of it, play every instrument and understand that depth and griminess that we can go with the music. But I also understand the hip hop lyricism aspect of things. I think that's just a natural mixture that still hasn't been tapped properly, in my opinion, yet. That's what Grimm Real is. So when I'm home here messing around, I'm doing Grimm Real. You know, I'm always thinking Grimm Real. I'm always thinking the hip hop stomp to it, but I'm also thinking I know the most intense slams of all time from being a death metal musician. What would match more perfect than the sickest lyrics, truthful lyrics, on top of the grossest, most nastiest death metal type of slam approach to that? You can't top that in any kind of way. No one in hip hop. Now, this is what was really messed up about this concept and why my life is really strange, because no one in hip hop, as nice as they are with lyricists, a genius, can look back and say, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and get to the deepest of the death metal and merge this shit and just make, they can't do that. They don't know this, right? Now, if anything, to be able to do that, they would be on top of something and they would have done it decades ago and this would have just been a matter of fact thing. But they can't do that. So I can rhyme. I know I can rhyme. I've been doing it all my life, but I also can take it to the depths of death metal where nobody, zero in hip hop can, which leaves me with a serious card to play right there. I haven't done it to the level that I want to do it yet, because anyone in death metal who knows me is expecting something from me, knowing Suffocation. And with that, I'm so critical as to how I come out, because I don't want to disappoint. I don't want to come short. You have one opportunity to make this right, right? Yeah. One opportunity to make this completely right. And I don't want to fall short in it. So that's why I keep quiet with Grimm Real. I still am, that is my persona, but I keep quiet with it until I know I have the exact winning formula, the same type of formula as the way Suffocation came out. You know, when we came out with what we did with Suffocation, we were at a perfect time of life, perfect time in the history where we couldn't go wrong. We were the prototype for that. So being that, and also being able to rhyme and see the world clearly, that's a mixture that deserves to be. And hopefully Grimm Real can do that eventually. I'm in no rush. I am in no rush because I can do that and from the comfort of this chair I'm sitting in right now. So I'm glad you asked, because that's just the way it is. Every lyric I wrote for Suffocation, if you just listen to the lyrics or read the lyrics, you see that it's in a rhyme style, a rhyme fashion. And that's just natural progression. So you can call me a rapper if you want, because I'm a lyricist, but you can't deny that I'm also 1%er of death metal as well. So mix the two and there's gonna be problems with that.
All right, you know what? That leads me to something really interesting, because, you know, you obviously took the Legion of Inveracity slam on Infected, but the only thing that I think, you know, kind of combines death metal and rap like you did was a song you played on, Suffocated to Death by God's Shadow, Necro, where you rapped over a fully death metal instrumental.
Well, that song on that's Necro rapping. I didn't rap on that. All I did was drum on that. Necro is a rap genius in himself. So he didn't need, when he hired me, he didn't need me to rap on that at all. So if anyone thinks that that's me rapping, that's not. That's Necro rapping and just me drumming on that. That's what I was hired
for. Yeah. I mean, I noticed it was you, but it was quite funny because, and, you know, for the drums, you kept to a death metal approach and said, you know, when we think about the more kind of modern metal and rap, combination, they're not blasting as much. You know, it's a lot of very kind of simple syncopation or kind of rock beats, but you already went full on ahead with the death metal stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's what was asked for, you know. Again, that was Necro's project, not mine. I'm not taking any credit for it. But he called me because he's a fan of Suffocation and what I did as Suffocation drummer. So I wasn't going to go on his album and go put the standard hip hop beat on it. He wanted the blast. He wanted that. And, you know, at the time, that's what it turned out to be. If I was to do it again today, I would probably come sicker and do something, you know, more thought out and into it. But at the time, that's what he asked for. And that's what he got. So he didn't need a hip hop beat on that. He wanted the blast. That's what he got, and worked out well.
All right. You know, one thing which is quite funny, you know, I remember seeing Suffocation. You know, unfortunately, you had already left the band at this point, just barely, when you know the band came to France. And one thing I noticed, before coming on stage, they had a rap song. I can't remember. It was like one of these younger guys, the guy with the gun tattoos on his face, Stitches. That guy. They used that as an intro. Was hip hop a part of Suffocation from day one, or was that something that came along later?
Zero. Hip hop wasn't involved with Suffocation at all in any kind of way. So whatever they played prior to the show, that could have just been the sound engineer who put on whatever music prior to that. I can't imagine that Suffocation would have purposely picked that out for any theme or purpose. Not unless I was in the band and told them that we should do this. No, rap never was part of. It still isn't today. Rap has never been part of Suffocation. No.
Yeah. You know, I imagine a lot of people get confused because I think you guys were the first ones in death metal to go, here's a really big percussive rhythm. You know, Morbid Angel did it briefly, funnily, on the song Suffocation, but no one in death metal before you guys ever took it that far. You know, I'm talking about, you know, the Human Waste demo, and then obviously, you know, Effigy of the Forgotten. Where did the love for rhythm come from?
But that was just, hey, I'm fortunate to say at that time, that was our natural style. And I say I'm fortunate to say that because I mean it. At that time, we didn't have anything to pull from. You know, of course, thrash was out doing their thing. That's great. But we were playing before Suffocation, we were playing in peace bands with each other and different musicians at the time in the basement. And we were still doing that. We always had tons of riffs, tons of rhythms, slams, all that shit, when that wasn't the common thing to do, but it was a common thing to do for us. I'm happy to really be able to say that anything you heard Suffocation do, especially from the Re-Cremated days, Human Waste, Effigy of the Forgotten, all of that, that was something that we woke up in the morning and that's how we approached our instruments. So we were fortunate to be at that time the one of a kind with that. Nowadays, it's hard to be one of a kind of anything. But back then in 91, or 89 actually, but in 91 when everyone heard it, we were fortunate to still have room to just let it fly. And I thank Long Island for that. I'm happy we grew up, you know, out in the sticks. You would consider the sticks at that time, the boroughs, Long Island and the country. That's just the vibe that the street gave us. And we were so fortunate to have it. And, you know, that's the formula, man. That was a formula that got us where we needed to get. Thank God for it.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of people attribute that to kind of the New York hardcore stuff, and then, you know, the chuggier bands like Exodus. Did any of those bands really have an influence on you, or was it really like your natural rhythm?
Exodus definitely did. Exodus was one of the first of the thrash bands, you know, next to Slayer, of course. Once you heard Slayer, you said, okay, all right, I'm going to walk different immediately just from knowing Slayer. But when Exodus was out as well, that was where you really knew that, oh shit, this isn't a fluke. This is something. Back then, like Bonded by Blood felt fast to me. Oh shit, listen to this shit. That's just crazy, 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 crazy. And look how the drummer's just killing it. Look how he's killing that, you know. So there's influence from Exodus for sure, because Suffocation has a thrash vibe to it. Some, if you really listen as well. But again, I still have to go to the point that the formula, we knew that when we did Suffocation, that if Slayer and Exodus and Megadeth and Possess sounded like this, we have no right to sound like that. That was just the law. That was a rule that you don't sound like this, that, and the other band. And again, I attribute that to the time of year, time of life that it was. The space was open and the sky was a limit with that. But yeah, Exodus is definitely an influence on us. If you hear it in the music now, I would definitely say that was the first of the thrash that I really took notice to. But right from Exodus was us, and then that flipped to death metal. So there was no long line or history in between the day that I heard the Bonded by Blood CD, or tape, I should say. From the time I heard the Bonded by Blood tape, it wasn't that long before Suffocation was here and thrash flipped to death metal. So it's a real short history span in between that acknowledgement right
there. Yeah, and then you guys really developed those rhythms. You played a lot. There was a huge development between Effigy to Breeding and the way you approached those rhythms. And in general, you guys were always very technical players from from the beginning, even from the demos. But you took it further and further. Was that a natural thing, or did you consciously say that, oh, I have to get better at my instrument? What happened there?
Well, we always knew that we wanted to get better at the instrument. That's a given. That's a given, but that didn't affect our writing style at all. The writing, like the riffs and guitar approach that like Doug Cerrito and Terrence were always coming with, that was natural. They always came that way, as long as I knew them, as long as we were together doing anything. So we knew that we were going to get better just from the fact of just playing together. We were going to get better, but we weren't in competition with anybody at that time like it is today, right? So everything, again, I have to go back and say, because it was 89, 90, that time of life, the playing field was open. So we didn't know what we were going to become. We just knew that we were going to be in my parents' basement 3 nights a week, making this ruckus until it came something. Whether we excelled and became better guitarists and drummers, whatever. It was just natural progression. We did it to please ourselves. Fortunately, when we got the formula together, everybody else loved it as well. So we were the chefs of our own creation, and we were fortunate that everybody was like, oh shit, I like that shit right there. I like that a lot. That's a win-win right there. It's very hard to do that today because the market is saturated, but it was a win-win for us at that time, for sure.
Yeah, and which is funny because obviously you got better as a drummer, everyone got better at their instruments, but because you wrote Reincriminated, right? You must be pretty good at guitar as well. Obviously you played bass on Souls to Deny after, but how did you manage all these instruments?
Well, and I don't know that if I wrote Reincriminated a song. I have to, maybe a riff or something, but at that time we were all writing together. I play every instrument because on Long Island, everybody played instruments, right? Yeah. I was a guitarist first. That's what was my first pickup. I started with ukulele, actually, and then went to guitar. Nobody around us chose to take up the drums. And that was the only reason that I took up the drums. It was a natural thing to me. I always had the rhythm in my house. My father was a huge avid record collector. My whole family are full of musicians. So the rhythm was always there. I just always had a natural ability to get on a drum set and play. In a death metal vein, no, I did not. But I always could play drums better than anybody else of my friends who tried to. So it was a process of elimination why I became drummer. But I always played guitar. I've always been a lyricist. And that just merged into everything. But I don't think Reincriminated, I don't think the song Reincriminated, there's so many songs that I have to go back and listen to it and be like, oh yeah, I did write that riff, or I did write that lyric, because I don't hold on to all that stuff. I wrote more only because I needed to write more. Back then, I didn't need to because Doug, Cerrito, and Terrence were just all over the place. They had riffs for days. They didn't need all of my attention. I wrote more when it came to the reunion, music-wise. When it came to the Souls to Deny, moving forward, that's when I had to write entire songs, lyrics, guitar, bass, and if they didn't want to record it, then I recorded the guitars, and just that was what I did as a drummer. All right, that was the drummer's role in Suffocation. The real Suffocation, that was the drummer's role as well. He was a guitarist, lyricist, drummer, businessman, all of it combined. You didn't just hop in there and say, I'm Suffocation drummer now, and all I do is play drums. That would never have flown back then. So that was the difference between me and Suffo with the original formula, as opposed to what's going on now, where anybody can just come in and be the drummer, and that's the end of their job, that they punch in, punch out, and get on with it.
Yeah. And when Effigy came out, a lot of death metal bands, which went from a somewhat primitive style of music, just everyone kind of exploded in technicality. Do you think that's because of you, or because just that's how the way things were going?
Well, I'm too humble to just say, yeah, of course it's because of us. What I will do is say that you can ask any band where they got it, and they'll most likely say they got it from us. So with that, that's where that truth lies. Or you could also go back to the history books and just do the history, do the math, who was where, when was what, and we're gonna pop up there again. So rather than me come out in a braggadocious way, yeah, I don't do that. I only follow truth no matter what it is. I only follow truth, and that always wins and speaks. So if you're to ask any band, they'll definitely say they didn't do certain things until they heard Suffocation do it. Again, I thank the Lord that I was able and at that age to be that source in 1989, which makes me 50 now, but whatever. I'm still thank the fact that, I was able to do it. I don't like to brag and boast. I just know where I was, at what time I was there, and what I did play. And it just so happens to be that we were one of the first. I appreciate that.
And this leads me to another part, because the bands you guys were listening to, except, a few exceptions in the death metal world, weren't as technically competent as you. Do you think that metal needed to get more technical to develop?
No, no, I didn't think any further than what Suffocation was doing. Metal was fine just the way it was. We were never out to redesign anything for anybody. We just wanted to put out what felt good for us. That is it. We didn't look any further. When we wrote every song, the music wasn't written for the people in the streets. It was written because we thought this was sick. Oh shit, that riff sounds sick with this. Play that again. That's why we did that.
Yeah.
It just happened to be, it wound up busting open doors and making people say, oh shit, I thought I could play guitar, but I can't play like that. I'm going to learn to play like that now. Right? We were fortunate. Again, it keeps coming back to that same center, that we were fortunate to be there in '89 to do that, because there was plenty of room for originators. So no, we didn't think metal needed a damn thing. Maiden was fine. Judas Priest was sweet. All of those bands were perfect exactly as it was, and still to this day are perfect. And there was just a little bit of room for us to fit in as well. Did we expect to be the head of a branch, to branch off shit? No, we just knew that if you allowed us into the scene, we were gonna hold our own, no matter what. You didn't have to follow us, sound like us, do anything like us. But we personally were gonna hold our own. That was it.
Now, that leads me really well into another thing. Now, a lot of people love Suffocation. I think, what you did, no one has ever really been able to do it properly. But you guys spawned multiple styles of music, deathcore, slam, all this stuff where they just took the kind of groovy parts. I mean, not even the groovy parts. I'm just talking about that the one riff from Legion of Veracity, and they play it 10 million times a song. I mean, how did you feel of no offense to anyone who likes that kind of music, but how do you feel about being the progenitors of something that wasn't very creative at all?
Hey, I have no problem with anybody playing that riff 1,000 times. If it can still at this moment get the crowd to jump up and down and slam and dive and do all that shit, that was when we were at our happiest. That's when the whole club was at its happiest moments. If you can still play that riff or that type of riff and get people to feel crazy and have goosebumps, then please play this until we are all dead. I have no problem with that. I don't care how close it sounds to us. I take pride in the fact that it had that influence. I take pride in the fact that I know it still gives me goosebumps, right? So it withstood the test of time, and you don't fight that shit. Certain things are disposable and come from a minute and are gone. This doesn't happen to be that. I am happy to be part of that. Please recreate it as much as you have to. That's our gift to you. You're welcome.
That's a very humble answer once again, Mike.
It's the only way I know. I can't be no other way. You'll see.
Now, one thing I want to, talk to you about, which is my favorite piece of music of all times. People hate me everywhere. It's Anomalistic Offerings from Breathing the Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
This is really a question for me, as a fan. How did you make that song? I mean, what happened there? Was there anything particular?
Oh man, what happened? Nothing happened. Everyone came to the basement like clockwork as usual. that was it, man. Maybe we smoked a little weed and had a Budweiser, some shit like that, but nothing happened because we never sat and tried to say, yo, we could really fuck them up if we do this shit. We never once in our day, back then at least, said that. We never cared about that. That was such a natural approach to how songs are written for us that it is what it is. We could have got up out the bed, which we did. We got straight up out the bed and went downstairs and created that song. So that's what made the formula of Suffocation so special. That's what differs from then to the formula of it today. It's not the same thing. You can add people into the band, but you cannot add the formula that made Suffocation. You just recreating shit at that time. But Anomalistic was that the whole Breeding the Spawn album was a weird transition, writing wise, and it wasn't because we planned it out. It was just that's what we thought was natural progression for us at that time.
And that leads me to another question. A lot of people overlook that album, really, unfortunately, because of the production.
Mm-hmm.
I know, you've talked about the production issues a million times. You guys played re-recorded versions of those songs. I mean, were they, what I want to say, apart from the production, did the album mean a lot to you guys at the time? Were the songs were what you wanted and everything?
It meant a lot, of course, because we had to follow up Effigy. We had everyone's attention with Effigy. So naturally, we were like, oh shit, they like that? Oh wow, okay, we got this then too. And we needed that to be the baddest, the greatest thing to follow that. That would have just set our future crazy. So it was definitely of importance to us. And we didn't get any of that we thought we deserved during that time. That album was hard I think I stopped listening to that album a week after it was made, truthfully, because I knew that we got screwed on the production of it. We got screwed on just the attention of it. But the industry was young at that time. I don't want to blame anybody because no one had the need to listen to us if we were telling them this is going to be the biggest thing on earth. You need to send us here. You need to do. No one had any reason to listen to us that way, especially not the record labels. You know, they already had the Deicides and Obituary, Sepultura, and all of them out already. So we were just coming up. So we got screwed on that. And, you know, it was a follow-up album off of something as huge as what Effigy was naturally that's going to be something that you put a lot of, you know, expectations into and heart. And half of our heart got cut out with that, but the song still remained the same. That's why we had to re-record it, just for our sanity, so that we can listen to the album now, and that anyone new getting it now can at least understand what the intention was. We had real intentions with how that was. When we played it in the basement, it sounded crisp and clean and beautiful. For it not to sound that way on the album, you can imagine. It's like, oh man, what just happened here? So,
you know, honestly, I don't care. I just love it so much, and I think the suffocating sound works really well on some parts of the album, and it has, you know, I don't know, maybe I love that album too much. I'm probably a bit too obsessed, but that's the way I am. But you know, one thing, you know, you've mentioned on the songwriting process episode of your podcast, Metal Mentality, and you mentioned here as well, is that your basement. Tell us what is so magical about, you know, the basement, that way you guys did everything. What if I go to your basement right now, will I write Suffocation too?
No. You would have to go 4 houses back, and my parents would have still had to be in it. Then maybe you would have seen and felt something magical. I'm in my basement now, but it's not Suffocation vibe like that. My basement was special because my family was the only family on earth at that time who was allowing any of us to do that, right? No parent of anybody in Suffocation was allowing us to come into their house and play that ruckus. Zero. So that's one reason why it was so special. My parents were upstairs right at the dinner table while we were downstairs, full blast, not half volume, not playing out of little gorilla amps, full blast cabinets downstairs, all hours, and we were blasting it. Nobody heard no noise like that ever. Eventually that noise became music, and my parents were like, yeah, see, this is why we do what we do. We knew that it was better for you to be in this basement with all of these people coming in and out of the house than out on the streets doing some nonsense. So at that time, if you would have come into the basement then, you would have known something. You would have felt something, because we were truly a gang at that time. We really were a band. We were friends and brothers first, but we really spent time down there. We didn't do all this shit through the computer and this, that, which is the way it is now. And hey, that's just natural progression, but we didn't do all that. We actually got up, went down into the basement, shook hands, had a few beers, and put this shit together, which is why when we came out on stage and did our thing, that it was flawless, because that was just a matter of fact at that time. We already played these songs 1,000 times. Now you're putting us on stage, okay, fine. Here it is, and we're gonna make it look easy, because it is at that time. It was natural, it was easy, and that's just the way it went. But yeah, without my basement, there would have been no Suffocation. That's a fact. That is a fact. Nobody would know anybody in Suffocation or one song if my parents weren't like, yeah, I know 10, 15 people coming through here. I know they all smell like weed. I know this, that, and the other, whatever. We actually, the first house I was at before the actual Suffocation started wasn't big enough to do this. So my father and my mother, they sacrificed and bought the next house with the basement purposely, because they saw that it wasn't a fad. Once I got the drums, they saw that I wasn't playing games. I really want to do this. We were stuffing friends in my little bedroom trying to play. They said, oh, no. If you're gonna do this, okay, the least we can do is give you the space to do it. So they sacrificed a lot. They definitely sacrificed a lot. And if anybody else's parents were going to do that or would have done it, they certainly weren't speaking up at that time.
Oh, that's really incredible. That your parents would go through so much just to let you play this. Well, I mean, what most parents call noise, but
Loud,
yeah,
loud. We played. We didn't bullshit, and it wasn't all. It started off at noise. It had to start as noise first before we recognized what was happening. So the first people on earth I could actually to ever hear Suffocation song of my mother and father. First people on earth to hear it come together. And that shit is, you can't take that from, you can never take that from me, ever.
So, you said you had 10, 15 people in the house. Were there a lot of friends coming in?
Sure. Because it was a party at the time. It was a party at the time. The girls caught wind, so, they passed their way through and had to be there just to see. You had all the other offshoot musicians come through. It was just, that was where it was at, man. And in the suburbs, we were free people. It's not like the boroughs where it's tight and just stupid. We had land, space, free air, and we just hung out. Everybody hung out, and my basement was the first club. I really thank my parents for that because they both worked. They weren't slackers. My father would come home and be tired as hell, and that's when we were coming in the basement at the same time. So there's really something. You can't take that shit away. You can't make that story up. You can't do none of that. But a lot of bands, a lot of musicians came through my basement. A lot of us played together. Like I played with members of Pyrexia through my basement as well. Destroyed by Anger, I let them rent my basement to do their thing and whatever they want to do when Suffocation was done. So we had shit going on in there. And yeah, if we can do it, that's just the way it always has been. It's musical house, musical family. That was a gift we gave to all of the kids. And a lot of those kids came out to be in bands. Internal Bleeding, Pyrexia, all of those, everybody came through there at one point.
That leads me to my next question. Do you think that because with the whole digital age and COVID and everything, musicians can't see each other. There really isn't a need. You have a million websites. So everyone can play whatever instrument, send the stems over nowadays so quickly. But do you think that the magic comes from that sense of community, that you need a group of people with the same objective to really make something special?
It did. You can't take anything away from actually being in a room playing that. That's where that translates to the stage. That translates into the confidence. That translates into songs really forming as they should. Now with the technology, and you can take all the time you want to piece things together, put it together, and then voila, now you have the song, you send it. That's great. That doesn't mean that you can translate that on stage, because you haven't played it 100 times, 1,000 times with the members you're going to be with. So you can put the greatest masterpieces together without leaving the comfort of your home. It takes away something when you don't walk the same way, when you can't come out and be like, we played that 1,000 times. Here we are, let me get on the stage, let's get it. You don't walk the same way. There's a confidence level that isn't included with that. And it just changes the work dynamic up greatly. But it's a natural progression thing. This is where we're at now, and everybody just gotta cope with it. But knowing both sides of it, from the organic to the quick satisfaction version of it, I wouldn't trade nothing I wouldn't trade how I came up for the world, because that made me. I had rules. There's rules and regulations that went to being in a band, keeping a band, getting that band to a level. There's rules to that, and it just makes you walk different when you're in the music industry, when you know that you have that behind you. When it's pieced together, you're there with buddies. When you meet up on stage, you're there with buddies. You'll do a festival or whatever, but you're not the core formula that you would be if you were in the basement at the same time.
Those are very interesting words and something that's probably going to disappear, if COVID continues like this.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. There's going to be well, a lot has changed with COVID already, but the music industry is not done getting its ass kicked. We're really about to get a severe ass kicking, especially if the promoters and club owners follow and comply with that nonsense of forcing people to get jabbed in order to come in. People ain't going to do it. We'll stay right home, and that's going to be good for the people who stayed home, but it's going to be terrible for the bands who needed us to come out. Because what's going to happen is those arenas are now not going to hold those people. So now you're going to have to downsize to the little venues and then downsize again as people still refuse to comply. And who's going to lose? The bands are definitely going to lose. They're going to have to now go get that 9 to 5 that they've been delaying for the last 20 years. They're going to have to get it. Promoters going to lose money. And in the end, the government, who's trying to push everybody to fuck your businesses up and all that shit, are going to just throw in a towel and be like, April Fools. Meanwhile, everybody lost their career. Everybody lost their way of living, fucking around, playing games. So this is not over yet, and we're rebels. The death metal scene, the music scene in general, we started out as rebels who did what we wanted to do. If it's now that we're going to try and comply and be stupid and start cutting your own fan base off, well, you're going to find out the results of that. Everybody loses, right? So right now, I'm not jealous about anybody who's doing music, trying to tour and do all that shit. I am not jealous at all. I'm right here at home, making my money that supports me and the family. And you would have to really come with something in order to talk me into joining the band right now and trying to start that circuit, because I don't see any way of surviving on that. I don't see any way. And I tried to think this through. How would I do this if somebody called me today to do it? I see zero ways to really make this work. This has to be like a side thing now. You're in a band, but you have your job and shit at home to get you through this, because it's going to be a long road for a long time, as far as I can see.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that nowadays, because people are doing music as a side gig, anyone can get any piece of equipment. It's really, you can produce at home. You don't have to go to a studio. Do you think that as well, because they're not out there, playing music to survive? Do you think that'll change music as well, the quality?
Via the equipment that you can get, you mean?
No, what I mean is like, because people, they can create music from home. They don't have to go out on tour anymore. But because you guys, if I remember, you guys were like, Suffocation was 100% what you guys were doing for a while. You were touring and everything. But
That's right.
But it's like, I'm thinking, Tony Iommi, when he made Black Sabbath, because he didn't want to work in a factory anymore. He needed music to work. Do you think that, like, people saying, I don't need music to survive, I'll get an actual job? Do you think that affects the way the music is written, composed?
I if we're writing music for ourselves, which is the approach we're supposed to be, music is always going to be a soundtrack and interpretation of what your life is at that time. It shouldn't get watered down. Nothing should change if you're actually always writing music for yourself and for the moment of time that you're in. Right? So hopefully that answers the question. I think the best of us, we know what music is good. We know what music has sold. We know what music we were able to tour with and do whatever. If we're forced to now be home writing, that can work in a bunch of ways for us. One, it should never change the quality of music that we write, because that should have been a natural thing to you to begin with, right? You shouldn't have been searching, scratching, and digging up shit to come up with your music. That should have been something that's your natural approach to doing it anyway. So no matter if we're doing it the old-fashioned way or we're doing it from remotely from our homes, the music quality shouldn't change. The message in the music, the soundtrack shouldn't change. How we put it together, that's already changed. The sound of things has already changed because it's not organic anymore. It's all mechanical now. Mechanical, quantized to the grid, sound replaced, all that shit that we never would have done, and all that shit that allowed a band to sound different than the other, that no longer exists. So those are the things that have changed, and not for the better either. Cleaner and quantized to the grid doesn't necessarily make better. I'll like to listen to a dirty DRI any day than a quantized DRI or Napalm Death. I want to hear them at their rawest. I want to hear their drums sound like shit if it was meant to sound like shit. I want to hear it that way because that's the way that sounds in the basement. So we're at a we're at a crossroads here, you know, because you have the seniors who know better, so they know they're going to keep their music right. They're just going to sound cleaner and do it. But you have the kids who don't know anything other than the new way. You can't shun them for that. They were born when they were born, right? Yeah. So the only common denominator is, which is going to keep the music authentic, is as a musician, you should only be writing music for yourself. It should be the soundtrack of your life. With that, the music will always be authentic. It'll be a little cleaner because of the electronic shit, but the authenticity of it should never change.
So, you know, you said, you know, music's changed, but considering how long you've been in death metal, the number of bands you've played with and everything, do you still have a passion for the genre? Do you still think, are there still bands that you're discovering and, or, you know, older bands who release new albums that you like?
I don't follow all music like that, just because I don't have time to do that. I still have a passion for writing and creating music, same way I always have, but now it's a little different. Now I don't have to come home and hop on a drum set and burn 4 hours out just because I want to get the sickest gravity blast or this, that, and the other. Now I don't do that. I have no need to do that. Whatever I played, the level I played it at, that was my natural. So if I woke up tomorrow, I can get on the drums and do that, no matter what. I never have to reach and plug in and put batteries in to make myself play what I naturally play. So my passion isn't lost. I just don't practice it like that. I'm always working up here, trying to think, okay, if I'm going to do this, why am I doing it? Is it going to make me any income? Am I doing it just for the sake of doing it? And that's really the extent of it. I have every instrument around me: guitar, bass, keyboards, drums, everything, record player in case I want to be a DJ all of a sudden, who knows? It's all here and it all gets touched equally or it doesn't get touched at all. But after all the years of playing it, it's not something that you lose. You know, I don't like, I'm not going to wake up today and start gravity blasting and trying to see if I can now outdo the fastest of the fastest out there, because that's never been me. I always did what was natural to me. I don't care what anybody else is doing in that sense. I listen to what comes across my path. I still go back to my old faithfuls. The original death metal and thrash and all that is still my old faithfuls. And then I'll sprinkle in the new that happens to come across my path. I'm not out searching for it. That's the problem with the music industry, is that all the music isn't right in your face or always being promoted. You don't have shows coming through here all the time. So you're not chasing bands. You're not a fan of bands. When you hear it, you hear it. When you love it, you love it. Until then, I got to work 9 hours a day, eat, sleep, start, repeat. Within that time, I'm not the same connoisseur that I was when I was younger. I still know that these bands are out here killing it, and I'm shocked when I see that they're still on tour doing it, because I can't imagine myself there right now. But yeah, I don't chase it down like I used to. Don't hate it that don't mean I hate it, or I'm not still death metal to the core. I just don't, there's no need, because the diversity in the music left a long time ago. You know what I mean? You can get 10 bands who are all sick, but are all playing the same formula. So with that, it's easy for me to just be like, okay, let me pick the one out and let the other just do what they got to do. I appreciate them, but I don't need to chase them down.
So, so how can us younger musicians, what do we have to do to find our own style? The way you guys did it.
Listen to less. Don't soak up everything. When I'm writing, or when I was in a prime of what I was doing, I didn't listen to anything that was out. It didn't matter to me what was hot at that moment, because I was always trying to write what reflected me. What is the sickest shit I can write that actually reflects exactly how I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling right now, right? That's the only plateau you need to reach. If you're gonna pick a band out of the streets or off a tour and be like, oh man, look how sick they are. Oh, I gotta write that at least, and that you're fucking yourself up with that. You're not supposed to be chasing anybody. All music off. What happens when you pick up your bass or your guitar? What do you come up with? Is there anything? If it's not, then you got a problem there first, right? Then that goes back to the same advice that I've been saying, is that you should not be writing music for anybody but yourself. Are you sick? Are you feeling docile? Do you want to make people cry? Do you want to make people kill? What is it? What is your version of it? That's all you should be worrying about, right?
Yeah.
Then what you put out, see if the people like it. If they don't, it wasn't meant for them anyway. So it's a win-win.
I think that's a really smart move. Listen to less music. I mean, because I see a lot of kids, younger ones, in metal forums and all that. They listen to 10 to 12 albums a day, and never the same album twice.
Because they have so many to listen to now. Now I understand, because when I was younger, music's always played. Always, always, always. All the albums would be playing when I was young. And that's fine. That's fine. But nowadays you have 1,000 albums to listen to. If that's all you're going to do, where do you find the time for yourself? And how are you going to find a way to naturally come out with something that was unheard of if you're hearing everything? If you're hearing everything that's available, naturally when you pick up the guitar, you're going to duplicate that. Yeah. If you didn't hear any of that shit and you wrote your music, and you just happened by coincidence to be a little similar to this, then at least you have that to fall back on. I didn't listen to your song. I didn't know that riff. I never heard those lyrics. This is what I wrote, and this is what happened. That feels way better than saying, okay, I sat here for 2 weeks, listened to these 5 albums, they're new albums, and now we're gonna go ahead and write an album that sounds like a mixture of these 5 albums. That's not good. That's not fun. You just copy and recreate and reproduce and being a parasite. Don't do that. Don't do that. No. But I'm not telling you not to listen to music and enjoy it. If that's what makes you get through a day, for sure do that. But there's a difference when it's writing time. When it's writing time, silence. I need silence. I need to think now because I'm trying to represent myself. I want you to jump off that stage because I felt this way, or my life is this way. Here is the soundtrack. I hope you dig it. That's the approach I always took. Works for me. And you know what's good with that is, being that you're taking that soundtrack, it don't matter if you're doing it for the stage, for tour, or whatever, because you're going to do it no matter what. If you're sitting home, not touring at all, you're going to do it anyway. Make it good anyway. And if you decide to get signed or do whatever the hell you're going to do, put it out there, then that's just a matter of fact thing. First things first, silence. Write your music. Don't care what anybody else is doing. If it's good, you'll know it. If it's not, you're not going to put it out.
That's great. All right. So, one thing, that there's been a lot of conversation from a lot of people was, you left after breathing. You came back for Souls Tonight. Then, I've read way too many conflicting interviews about what was going on. I mean, what happened? You left Breeding, so you didn't play on Pierced, but then on the close of a chapter, you were playing Pierced songs for like Thrones of Blood and Pierced from Within, and
Spies of Song, the Spies of Sun songs as well.
Yeah.
Funeral and the Spies and all of that. Played all of the shit. I would have played every Suffocation song that existed while I was on tour if everybody in the band knew how to play it. That was always a problem. Terrence knew them all, but he wasn't willing to teach the new guitarist or the bass player how to do it. So my hands were tied. It was tied with that. But when I left Breeding, after Breeding, I never left Suffocation because I was tired of playing Suffocation, or it was my choice to leave. I always left because I was pushed out for being too headstrong with it, right? I ran the Suffocation for this reunion. Nobody did the business of Suffocation but me. And that's where you saw us playing the Watkins. That's where you saw us on Headbangers Ball twice. That's where you saw us on History Channel commercials. That's where you saw us on the tour buses. That's where you saw all the merchandise come out. That's where you saw all the albums. That's when I was running. Before that, you didn't get all that shit. And there was just turmoil after Breeding the Spawn. There was turmoil within the band. There was a backstab type of warfare that was going on in there that, we were like our own worst enemies. So when I left Breeding, that was a unanimous decision amongst, the others. They thought that, I guess, you get a new flair drummer, that he's going to take you to where you had to be. That worked for a few minutes, and then that was a null and void attempt. After getting back into it and the business was good, that's when we finally were at a point where if we just make the right decisions, this can be our retirement plan. If we fuck around and do the same stupidness that we did in the past with the egos and people who shouldn't be speaking out of turn, you're now going to be doing Suffocation with the name, but making paper route money. This is what happened. You're only as strong as the weakest link. The weakest link always forces out the strong. So after this departure, this was a nasty departure as well the second time around. We were on the verge, we were on the post-eve of getting inducted into Long Island Hall of Fame. We were doing all this shit. And this is the time that the band is deciding, we're gonna bring in this new drummer and we're gonna hire this washed up whatever manager and take us to the stars. And at that point you could only fight so much with that. This was never a joke for me. There's millions of kids who want to be musicians, who want to be signed, who want to be touring, who want to have the impact on a scene and genre like Suffocation did. Millions of kids. So to have it and throw it away to be a paper route band, that is something that I can never explain. That's something that has given me nightmares time after time after time. And it's something that is going to go with me to my grave. It's going to go with me to my grave, because right now, this should be where we're making the most thought out, the finest decisions of our career to help the genre, to ensure that we can retire on this, and all of the original players who really are the formula of this can now relax from their armchair and just put out things at their leisure and live beautifully. Now it's not that. Now there's 15 different people, 20 different people who can claim that they're Suffocation. There's a problem with that. There's a problem with that. That the formula has been watered down so bad now that you can't even fix it. All you're doing is just running on the name. You're not running on formula and heart anymore. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not asked, begged, and pleaded with, Michael, please call up Cerrito, call up Chris, call up Frank, Please put this together. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear that. But I've seen the damage that it's taken. And it's like it's at a point now where it can't be fixed. There's no respect in it anymore. Anybody can be Suffocation now. We've given dozens of people the key to the industry just by a phone call. Bring, hello, hey, yeah, you want to be in Suffocation? What? Yeah. Just like that, people's careers are made and off they go. With that, that's great, because if Slayer called me or Metallica called me, I would do the gig too. But I would never for 1 second of my life go in there and pretend that I worked for that, because I did not. I did not make Metallica what they are. I did not teach Dave Lombardo how to play this shit. You understand what I mean? That's a real issue with me. I'm a person who, I live by my word. I don't disrespect people. I don't try and take shit from people. If this was street business, now coming from the Bronx and the street, if this was street business and things went down the way it did in Suffolk, people would have their heads blown off, as well as their families. That's you. If you did this in the mafia type shit that went on within Suffocation, people would have been killed. You don't do that. So the damage is done. You can't fix it. All you can do now is ride it out into the sunset. Those who got the opportunity to tie their name onto the brand, you're welcome. And hopefully you can make it, doing what you do. I know at this point right now, I can't see it. I don't know how it could ever be brought to the point again where it could be the business that it was, and maybe you retire off it, you can't do it. So it's gonna go to my grave with me, because it was my baby, it is my heart. I walk and talk Suffocation. I hold myself to a standard that anyone who approaches me knows you're gonna get the truth from me. You're gonna learn something from me. I don't care if you smoke weed. I'm not asking about no weed. I don't care about if you got cocaine. You never in your long-legged life heard me say that to anybody who stepped up to me as a fan, an inquiry. Nobody ever stepped up to me and got anything but the truth and what I feel they need to know that we're really here to help everybody. Suffocation had an opportunity when we were doing the biggest things that we were doing to make a path for the bands to follow. This is what we were trying to do. Get all death metal to raise the standard, follow this. You should all be in commercials. You should all be on videos. You should all be doing this type of things. And that would have made all of us, be able to eat off of this shit. We're not fly by night. For anyone who plays death metal really has to play it. You can't fake doing this shit. No one who runs the record industries can tell us how to write this shit. So because of that fact, time-proven fact, we were supposed to be running this show, not Suffocation. Death metal musicians and bands are supposed to be running this show at whatever level we choose it to be. Right now, the level is way down here, where nobody's eating. Everybody's getting a chance to play on stage, but nobody's eating from this. We run the show and we drop the ball. And I think that Suffo had a real good position to be the leaders of this, the ambassadors of how this should be done with fine-tuned moves. And that ball got dropped over stupidness and ignorance and people talking out of turn. And that is my story for my time with Suffocation, and I'm sticking to it.
Yes, I don't think anyone can disagree with you on that. Despite a lot of people saying stuff. One thing I found really weird was for the last album, which once again, no offense to anyone who liked it, I found it absolutely terrible. was how Derek wrote. He claimed to have written everything in 2 weeks. And honestly, because of the way it sounds, and it just it could be any band, and they've got the kind of cover art that could be part of an Xbox 360 video game. I mean, is there really any point in the Suffocation name existing? Is it, when you have me, the biggest fan ever, and I'm like listening, I'm listening to the new album, like I'll buy a CD just to burn it,
Mhm.
Is there any?
Yeah, well, I'm the biggest fan ever. Next to you, I'm the biggest fan of Suffocation. The theory of Suffocation, what really is. Writing in 2 weeks, that's the problem that we have. That was the beginning of the end for Suffocation. Even when I was in the post reunion, was the fact that we weren't getting together to practice. We would go on tour, come home, have 2-3 months where we should have been writing the sickest shit, just get so nasty. We wouldn't get together until 3 days before the next tour. And then go on stage and figure out how to play the damn song. So when he says he learned everything in 2 weeks, I believe it. And not because, and in Derek's defense, I know Derek, and he's the one I respect the most, because I know that if you put a work platform in front of him, his ethics are top notch. He will follow suit and do what everybody needs to do. So if he had to learn it in 2 weeks, I'm sure that's because that's the hand he was given. The music was probably written, kept to yourselves, and then, oh shit, I'm going broke. I need this money, I need this money. The label needs to give me some money for an album. Here are the songs I wrote, learn it, let's go. That's the way Suffocation started to get towards the, at least my last days. And that always showed, in my opinion, it showed in all the albums, because they weren't organically made. They were pieced together and then put out on an album. And you notice that when you go see Suffocation now, you're not hearing these new songs. You're not hearing 90% of the new songs from the last 4 or 5 albums, because the whole band doesn't know how to play them. That's a problem. That's a real problem. That's why you have all the oldies but goodies being rocked still.
Yeah.
Now, if it was me, if I had my druthers on how this should go, every album that exists, you should be able to play the tour for that album in its entirety. Far from that. With you being able to do that means, from a business sense, you can now make a live DVD for each album. Business sense, all the merchandise for that album, every tour for that album, and all that comes with it. What that also does, the fans who saw you last month do the Effigy tour are coming again next month to watch you do the Effigy tour. If you did the Effigy tour last month and the Blood Oath tour next month, you still keep all those people coming. You don't tire them out to where they're like, we already know that set. We're not going. You know what I mean? This is the business decisions that were made, that are continually made, that would have put all of us in the poorhouse. I got out just in time because I'm a welder. I have my career. I got out just in time. Frank got out just in time because he always knew it as well. And there's not much you can say to that shit though, man. But to write in 2 weeks and then have to go in the studio and record it, that is what happened to Suffo. That was always such a bad thing, because you never really knew the songs you were recording. They were just pieced together, and it showed. It definitely showed. So if that's still the way things are going now, I'm sorry to hear it, but I'm not surprised in any sense of the word, because I don't think any of them are local to each other. I don't know. I could be wrong now. They could all be living together for all I know, but I think they're all separated and doing their own thing. So the writing process is weird, man. What are you gonna do? Ride out the name until Suffocation suffocates.
I mean, considering that you had to play bass on Soul, you did. I think you did every single track, the bass at least, and you said earlier the guitars on Souls to Deny, right?
Not every, not I didn't have to do every, just the songs that I wrote. Terrence is still a beast. Terrence is a beast. Don't get it wrong. He doesn't need me to write. I needed to write in order to add some suffocation alternative back into it. I couldn't just let it go one way. Yeah, so I didn't play on everything. No, I only played on what I needed to. If the band knew the song that I wrote, like we actually practiced it, then they were welcome to go ahead and record it. But as Derek said, it took 2 weeks to go do this. If I wrote a song and nobody learned it, we didn't practice it, guess who had to play every part when we got to the studio? That's how it works. That's why it's such a flawed design now. And it shows. Certain people can hear it, like you heard it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, new kids, won't know. And they're just gonna, go off of the notion that what they're seeing in front of them is actually that. What can you do? Let it slide, I guess. But I didn't play it. But so just to be clear, I don't know where you heard that I played bass on everything. I did not do that. I only on the songs that I needed to do it on that I would have written. I don't play on any of Terrence's shit. That's all Derek or it could have been Terrence, but no. Just where I needed to do it. I didn't want to have to do it, but when I had to, it was just always a case that I would step up because Suffocation is me. And that was part of the drummer's role of Suffocation, do it all.
Yeah. Quite honestly, I also get the impression that without any offense to anyone, on the, post reunion stuff, there was not that impetus, there's the songs kind of have not a consistent rhythm, but it's not like on some of the older stuff where you have these explosions of aggression. Sometimes it'll slow down drastically. There wasn't as much of a dynamic and an emotional shift. That's what I want from Suffocation. The fucking kill the first person you see because you've got all that pent up rage. Sometimes like that kind of an animal quality to Suffocation wasn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, again, it goes to the point that we weren't writing as a band. Everyone was writing separately. Hey, I got a piece. Yeah, I got a little piece. Yeah, I got a piece. Oh, I've been hiding this song for 3 weeks, but here it is, and we got to play it this way. So the emotion was left. You can't deny that. I know it. I knew it from every album moving forward that there was something missing. And at this point, it's only the music is only coming from one direction. It's in my opinion, it's Terrence Hobbs' show now. He writes a certain type of way. Now he can do it all. I'll never take that from him. He could do it all. He's proven that. But he was never the sole writer of Suffocation. We all wrote and made shit. We would throw shit right in the garbage, no matter how much you liked it. Oh, that's it. Nope. Garbage. You know what I mean? No, there's nobody to check anybody now.
Yeah.
Now anything goes because you don't want to hurt feelings or this, that, and the other, which in turn, a wise ear or trained Suffocation listener like yourself, you're going to hear that, and there's nothing you can do about that now. The dynamic and the formula has been gone a long time for that. So whatever it is now is what you get, and just, take it, love it, mix it with the rest of the death metal that's out there, and hopefully it usually holds its own regardless. Yeah. But it doesn't have all of the, like you say, come out and kill you with it. I just killed you, but the next riff is me apologizing to you real quick. Yeah. And then I kill you again. That's the way we used to do that. I know you're right because I know. But yeah, a lot, once the formula branches off and splits, it's just natural that it's not going to be the same. Now it's whatever. It's a surprise now. You're surprised at what you're going to get now. At least it holds its own. Suffocation album will never be like the bottom of the barrel shit. Just for the fact that Terrence is still there and he's a a genius in himself with that. I'll never take that from him. A lot of other things I will, but that I'll always give him that. When you think you have no more riffs, Terrence got another riff. So enjoy. It's a Terrence Hobbs show now, and he has more jumpity style, up tempo jumpity style, as opposed to like when Serena was in it. You heard the differences between the two and such and such.
Oh,
it's just what it is, man.
All right, I think I've held you up quite a lot of time. I've got one final question for you. What is the most magical suffocation moment for you in a song? In what song, what piece, what album, what when you felt the magic of suffocation at its strongest? When was that? What thing?
It's not a song. It's not a song. The magic of suffocation always for me was when we're playing live, and it didn't matter if it was 100 people or 100,000 people. The magic of it was leading up to the show, everybody wondering, oh shit, here comes Suffo. Are they gonna pull this shit off? Can they really do this shit? And then everybody who doubts you, it could be the best musicians in the world, or it could be fans. Anybody who doubts you, line up around the stage, get all their comfortable positions, arms crossed, all that shit behind you, all that. And then we come out and effortlessly, flawlessly kill the set, sweat the whole fucking club out. And people are just like, holy shit, that was the greatest fucking shit I ever seen. That's the magic to me. That was always the magic to me. The people talking to me like you're talking to me, understanding me, and then actually seeing me on stage, same humble, kill it, looking at everybody as I'm doing it, get up and then be able to go hang out with everybody. And they're just like, oh shit, you just raised the bar. We know what we have to do now. That was the magic, getting the point across. Because in the end of the day, I am still a 1%er of death metal. There's not many black people in death metal. So I'm literally the 1% of black metal, or death metal, I should say. And the pride of it, the ability to show, improve, and still stand up straight and make people want to be better after they see it, that's the magic of it. That was part of the formula. So it's not one riff, because I love riffs all through Suffocation catalog. It's just a point of showing people that this is what happens when you are true to something. You're not faking this. So naturally, when you give a 2 count and start, this is what you're going to get. That was more important to me than anything else, letting people know that this is not a game. And if you're true to it, you can be humble, have fun, and change the world at the same time, which we certainly did in a good way.
I have one final question, because I just remember this. I've been meaning to ask to understand this for years. On the old version of Catatonia on the Human Waste, there's there's an extra solo section that disappeared from the Spies' Son version, and that disappeared from every live version starting from '93. What happened? Are you
sure? Are you sure? Because I don't know it. I don't know what you mean.
Dude, I swear to God, no, it was on the Human Waste. It was on a live video. You added an extra solo section there. I swear to God, I literally.
I don't. I mean, okay, you caught me off guard with that, because I don't know it. I don't remember it. I feel like I've always heard you say Catatonia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard it the same way since the beginning of the time. So I have nothing. I got nothing. You got me on that.
I'll send you a link after.
Please do.
Yeah, you will. All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for this. It's really meant a lot to me.
Hey, Nick. I try and do what I can, man. I know you thought you were bothering me. It's just my way of coming across, not to give too much, just in case you were going to bother me. But it's anyone who knows me knows that once you get me talking, you're going to get the straight up truth and attention. I'm listening just as I'm expecting you to listen. You know what I mean? So that's it. We keep it straightforward, and hopefully, people, when they hear Suffocation and Mike Smith, they only have one thought. that I was solid, truthful, and always tried to get people moving forward, not backwards.
And also, you know, the straight blast beat, the Mike Smith blast beat.
Yeah. I'm glad people take it in. I love to hear it. I feel funny when I'm telling my daughter or whoever, you know, that's my shit. Some call it the Smith blast shit. I feel funny, so most of the time I don't say it, but this is a life, this is history, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time I listen to every band that comes out and they're doing it and they hit it, that brings me back to like, oh yeah. This is what this is about. I actually came out, made a mark. I have my roots in things, and it's never going to go away. And this is all I ask for, man. I'm not trying to just be out here walking and being a mouth breather and not leaving no impact nowhere. I'm so happy that anything that I did is considered an influence in something so extreme as this. You know, that's a blessing to me. And because of that, it helps me walk straight. I'm a good person because I come solid to people, because I know that the one time that I did it, it worked in my favor, and I'm blessed with that, man. So please, Smith blast all day.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, brother. Bleed, everybody. Thanks for your attention. Nicholas, I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thank you, Mike.
All right, peace.